Hi everyone, welcome back. Again, I'm Tony from Shinsho Yoga, and today I want to talk about Urdvha Hastasana, or upwards facing hands position. So, going along with the theme that I've had of the prior videos of yoga basics, Urdvha Hastasana, upward facing hands, is going to be one that you would commonly see in most yoga flows, most vinyasas. So I teach Hatha Yoga, and that was the most prominent style in India prior to the colonization of the British at the end of the 1600s, and is what was brought back by a man by the name of Krishnamacharya with the resurgence of Indian independence in the late 1800s, early 1900s. He is considered the godfather of modern yoga, and he's the one that created the vinyasa, which means flow in Sanskrit. So in a flow, you're generally going to see somewhere at some point upward facing hands, usually part of the sun breath sequence, which I've mentioned before and I'll do a video for later. But this posture with our hands coming up, and I'm doing this seated right now, I will do it standing, but as my studio is in my basement and I'm tall, my hands hit the ceiling. So I'm going to show you here right now how the hands should look. So in Urdhva Hastasana with upward facing hands, in all of our flows in Hatha, in standing poses, we want length through the spine. We want a lifting of the crown and a sinking of the tailbone. Right? We want that energetic spinal expansion. In all our postures, we want to be able to have a long line of energy. It doesn't matter whether we are lying down or standing or what type of posture it is, we're always looking for long lines of energy. But particular to standing postures, that lifting of the crown and that sinking of the tailbone. In Hatha, we want to have the pose do the work for us. We don't want to work the pose. Allow the pose to do the job. You want to be able to come into it and come to a place, as my teacher called it, a place of sweetness, a place to be able to be where you can rest in the pose and let the pose do the work. Right? So in Urdhva Hastasana, the first thing you're going to do, we'll be doing this standing in a moment to demonstrate where the legs are, but to show you how the upper body moves in this, you'll sweep the arms above the head and gaze up toward the thumbs and lengthen the spine. Now in this, one of the things you'll notice is I'm not reaching with the shoulders. Actually, my arms are a little bit off to the side, and this is correct for my body, because the moment I start doing this, right, my shoulders now shorten up, they contract, and they contract up the thoracic spine, and we don't want to do that. Again, we want length through the spine. We want the muscles to be able to sink into the pose. And any point that you're shortening, right, at the area of you're looking to lengthen, you're working against it. Now, some styles and some teachers may have you do it differently. This is the way I was taught, this is the way I've studied, and this is the way I've learned it. Right? Practices such as Ashtanga, a friend of mine was an Ashtanga teacher, still is, when they would come into any type of standing posture like this, they would bring their hands into the Kali Mudra, and then they would shoot them up, right? They'd be going like this, staring up at them, right? Creating this forceful energy up. But again, what that does is that shortens up the shoulders, right? That causes the shoulders to contract, the upper back to contract, and shortens up the thoracic spine. And what we want, again, is that long line of energy. We want the crown to lift and the tailbone to sink. And you can't do that if you're shortening up the muscles in the back. You need them to be long. So we allow the shoulders to relax. Now, everyone's shoulders are different depending on what's going on in your life. I have some shoulder injury. I'm a lifelong martial artist, and I've had some tears over the years. This one particularly is more challenging than the other side, the right side. So for me, my hands come a little bit basically in line with the shoulders. They're just long. I allow them to relax, and I gaze up towards my thumbs, and I look to lengthen the spine. Now in this, that doesn't mean that I just come out to here, right, because that's the easiest thing to do, right? I'll just be here. I try to bring them in as close as I can and reach as far as I can without shortening up the spine. That's the trick of the practice. That's the point that you want to be able to work towards. That's that subtle refinement, is to be able to bring them up And I often will take my arms one at a time and reach them up here and get as much length as I can, and then let the shoulders relax down. So a little bit of this, and then relaxing down and gazing and letting the neck relax. Now in a flow, you might not have the opportunity to be able to take that stretch and do that. You may just have to come up and then come down. And when you do that, of course, doing it with the breath and doing it gently, rising up and folding, right? Not whipping yourself. When I get into the sun breath sequence in one of my next videos, I'll talk about that, hinging from the hips and moving methodically, not throwing yourself back and forth. But as for the upper body portion of Urdhva Hastasana, again, upward facing hands, allowing the shoulders to relax, gazing up towards the thumbs, lengthening the spine, and breathe. And as you do this, you may find that the muscles will relax and you can gain a little more length. Now, let's transition to standing here so I can show you how the legs are. Again, ceiling is low, I'm tall, so my hands are going to hit the ceiling. So in the standing, focus on what my lower body does here to get a better idea, because if you look and go, oh, well, he's just kind of bending his arms, that's because it can't reach any further. So let's take a look at what we have for standing. Okay, so for upward facing hands, what you want to do is start with the legs hip distance apart. So this is no different than when we're going into forward fold or halfway lift. Again, when we come into the sun breaths, the three of these all go together. So you want to be able to use all three, right, in the same width here that we have. So starting with the legs about hip distance apart here. I'm going to take the arms up to the sky, and again, ceiling low, tall guy, a little bit awkward. My arms are a little bent for this demonstration purpose, but again, just allowing the hands to come up, arms above the head, gazing up towards the hands. Actually, one of the studios I teach at, a place called the Yoga Loft, is actually a loft. It's the attic of a house, and the beams are low, and my hands hit. So no different there than here. So again, arms to the sky, legs about hip distance apart, gazing up towards the hands. Breathe. Again, avoiding that, trying to really press up or anything like that, just allowing the arms to be long, a lifting of the crown, a sinking of the tailbone, thinking like that. So again, legs about hip distance apart, sweeping the arms towards the sky. Again, my arms, if the room was higher, would have more length. Gazing up towards the hands. So again, breathe. And once again, back to the most important part of the practice, what we do here. So as your thoughts arise, I'm going to acknowledge them, allow them to pass by, and return to the breath. Each time a thought arises, acknowledge it, allow it to pass by, return to the breath. Time and time again, no matter what posture we're in. If we're in upward facing hands, if we're in forward fold, if we're doing a headstand, it doesn't matter. What we do here is the most important part of the process. The physical practice is a means to an end. We want to learn to still the mind. Again, yoga at its core is meditation. We're not looking to stop the mind. Can't stop the mind. It's not meant to be stopped. But we cannot engage in certain thoughts, or, to put it better, not allowing the strong emotions and thoughts we have to rule us, not being pulled into anxiety, thoughts of the future, depression, thoughts of the past. Doesn't mean we don't feel these things, doesn't mean we don't think about the future, doesn't mean we forget the past. We just don't get pulled into the emotional aspect of it. We see it, we notice it, and we let it go by. So Urdhva Hastasana, upward facing hands, again, more of a basic posture, feet about hip distance apart, arms go to the sky, shoulders relax, everything is long, lifting of the crown, sinking of the tailbone, length through the spine, and again, that's energetic. You're not looking to drive it up, just so thanks for tuning in. Namaste.